Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and in this one, we're talking about my favorite franchise ever, which is the Transformers. Transformers was a big deal when I was a kid. I was born in 76. So when they first hit in 1984, I was the perfect age, right? It was my favorite cartoon of all time. It was my favorite toy line of all time. I became obsessed with Transformers, and that never died down for me. There was never a time in my life when I quit caring about Transformers. And while it sort of died out in America, it kept going in Japan. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is basically the Japanese sequel to the original 80s cartoon that we had here in America. But before we get into all that, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. We've got a great community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to this one began a number of years ago when an energy being and self proclaimed God called Devil Z stole several Transformer protectors, also known as Transtectors, including one intended to be used by the legendary Autobot leader Optimus Prime. Devil Z scattered the Transtectors across Earth, where they lay in hiding for years, absorbing energy from the planet itself. This energy is what the Japanese refer to as Chokan power. Those Transtectors lay hidden for years, awaiting the day when Devil Z would have them bond to human beings, thereby creating new life forms, which in Japan are called God Masters. The Transtector, intended for Optimus Prime, looked like a red cab over engine semi truck, and it wound up in a garage in the American Southwest, where it waited on the day when someone would find it. Which brings us to the main plot, which begins in January of the year 2000, when John Redbridge finds the Transtector that looks like Optimus Prime. He speaks with the current owner, who tells Redbridge the truck has been rented several times before, but everybody returns it and claims that it is haunted. Redbridge isn't fazed by this at all, so he buys the truck. In the glove box of the cab, he discovers a pair of master braces and slipped them on his wrists, only to discover that he was unable to remove them. Redbridge began driving the truck, but after a while is sent off road when the truck began to experience an energy surge before being subsequently attacked by the Decepticon Godmaster brothers known as Hydra and Buster. Accidentally touching the bracelets together, Redbridge was infused with something called the Masterforce, a suit of power armor, then materialized around him, and then he transformed and combined with the truck. Now, a Godmaster himself, Redbridge fought the Decepticons and won, so they retreated. Elsewhere, the current leader of the Autobots, still stationed on Earth, is an Autobot named Metalhawk. He is part of a group of Transformers known as Pretenders. And before I go any further, Pretenders are pretty weird, so I will do my best to explain what their deal is. 8,000 years ago, a starship containing the Autobot Pretenders, Metalhawk, Lander, Diver, and Phoenix pursued the Decepticon pretenders, Blood, Daros, and Gilmer, to Neolithic-era Earth, where they crashed. Using their pretender abilities, the Autobots adopted the form of humans. They transformed the very structure of their bodies into an organic equivalent. They shrunk down to normal human size to hide in plain sight among primitive humanity. A pretender could transform from a human in two stages. Touching his left wrist and yelling "suit on" would cause him to don his pretender power armor. From this state, he could touch his left wrist and yell "pretender" to grow and transform into his robot mode. The Decepticon pretenders, on the other hand, adopted the forms of monstrous creatures, becoming feared by early man. They inspired several myths and legends in ancient Japan. After many battles, the Autobots succeeded in defeating their enemies and sealing them away. Blood was sealed in the pyramids of Egypt. Gilmer was sealed in the ruins of Atlantis, and Dauros was sealed beneath the Nazca lines in Peru. And there they remained for thousands of years. The Autobot pretenders continued to live among humanity. By the early 21st century, Meadowhawk was working at the Space Astronomy Research Center in Japan, while Diver was running the Ocean Research Institute of California. When the three Decepticon pretenders were liberated by the mysterious Decepticon god, Devil Z, the four Autobots were drawn out of hiding to fight them. Three young humans, whom the Autobot pretenders had befriended, were given Headmaster Transtectors by Meadowhawk. These three humans could then transform into the heads of their robots, and as such, are known as Headmasters. Meadowhawk intended for them to stick to search and rescue, and later had to come to the Headmaster's aid when they were faced with three Decepticon Headmasters. Meadowhawk later sent them to Diver in California for training. And shortly after that is when Diver encountered John Redbridge in California. And at first, Diver mistook Redbridge in his robot mode for Optimus Prime because his Transtector was originally designed as a spare body for Optimus before Optimus Prime was killed by Megatron in the year 2005. Redbridge is introduced to the other Autobots currently stationed on Earth, and not long after that, a second Autobot Godmaster is discovered, and it becomes known as Lightfoot. And after that, Meadowhawk and Lander accompanied the two Godmasters and the Headmasters to Canada, where they found a third Godmaster named Ranger. Then a Decepticon called Six Knight came to Earth looking to prove himself. And Meadowhawk didn't fare terribly well against Six Knight in battle. With the arrival of Road King, the Autobot pretenders opted to turn defense of the Earth over to Redbridge and the Godmasters. The three Decepticon pretenders set about enacting a plan dreamed up by the Godmaster brothers, kidnapping doctors from across the planet and holding them on Atlan Island. Once the plan was discovered, the Autobot Godmasters defeated the trio. Then another pretender named Grand Maximus arrived from space to join the Autobot forces, providing plans for a God Bomber drone unit. The Autobot pretenders soon began construction on God Bomber at a British Motors factory in Canada. They hurried to complete it just as the Decepticons attacked the factory. Then they immediately turned it over to Redbridge, who merged with it, forming an even bigger robot. He and Grand Maximus then duked it out with Overlord and Black Zarek. Then a distress call from a ship damaged by the final Godmaster was picked up by Diver, who relayed the information to Redbridge. After the Autobots took in Clowder, Hawk became suspicious of the last Godmaster, and he was proved right when he caught Clowder passing information to the Decepticons. Unfortunately, the damage was already done, and the Decepticons launched an attack on the Autobot base. Hawk was subsequently injured while trying to undertake damage control, and the base was destroyed. So then everyone else went to trash the Decepticon base, while the Autobot pretenders were left to monitor the planet for Decepticon activity. The Decepticon pretenders made a brief attempt to defend the base against Redbridge, but it didn't go well for them, as Redbridge and the Autobots then closed in on Black Zarek. Lightfoot and Road King fought Gilmer and Daros, defeating them before being attacked by Hydra and Buster. The three Decepticon pretenders spotted Road King, Ranger, and Lightfoot and alerted Black Zarek to their location. Meanwhile, far above, Black Zarek's new form now stands revealed, a twisted two-headed serpent which launches energy blasts at Redbridge from its mouths and swats him out of the sky with its tail. As the battle rages, Overlord appears overhead, and Black Zarek offers him a chance to redeem himself, but the Ambassador of Destruction opens fire on Black Zarek instead. Infuriated, Black Zarek vows to show Overlord what happens to traitors and envelops him in a beam of power. Crying in pain, Overlord's last act is to tell Redbridge to ensure that Black Zarek does not live before Giga and Mega are suddenly ejected. Shocked at what they are seeing, Redbridge and Grand Maximus are distracted enough to be blasted out of the sky by Black Zarek. The cocoon of power recedes, and the Overlord Transtector emerges, now a truly independent, living, super robot life form itself, brought to life by the power of Devil Z. Giga murmurs that he wishes they could have settled their rivalry with Redbridge honorably, and with that, he and Mega die, and their master braces vanish from their wrists. Burning with anger and Chocon power, Redbridge rises. Overlord lunges for Redbridge, but Grand Maximus transforms to robot mode and tackles him. Black Zarek orders Wilder, Cancer, and Bullhorn's now living Transtectors, who attack Redbridge instead. But the Godmasters arrive just in time to handle them, leaving Redbridge to face off against Black Zarek. They collide in a mighty explosion, hurling Redbridge back and leaving Devil Z simply laughing from within Black Zarek's body. He announces to Redbridge that the Autobots' very existence, the existence of all the Godmasters, is as a result of his machinations, and to him they are nothing more than tools that will never be able to defeat their maker. Redbridge dives at Black Zarek, driving hard against a beam of power. Fighting with all of his strength, Redbridge overpowers the beam and crashes into and through Black Zarek, whose body finally explodes into fragments, exposing the glowing orb that is Devil Z. As the villain rages impotently, Redbridge and the headmasters unite every drop of their Chokon power for one last mighty attack. Redbridge dives into the heart of Devil Z, who screams and explodes in a wave of light and darkness. As the blast dies out, the skies clear and Redbridge fades back into view, and the Decepticons battling below stop and gape, unable to comprehend what has occurred. Overlord is the first to take action, and that action is retreat. With their leader lost, the Decepticons immediately take to the air and head for outer space. Redbridge comes floating down out of the sky and lands in front of his troops. But the surprises are not over yet, though. All of the Godmasters and Headmasters suddenly glow with blinding light. When the light fades, 7 organic beings are left standing on the snowy ground, and Minerva is the first to realize that their master braces have vanished. It is Road King who then makes the next discovery. A short distance away, their transtectors are standing in robot mode. Redbridge's transtector looks down at the organic beings before him and thanks them for all they have done. It is then that Redbridge realizes what has happened. With Devil Z's death, the link that he created between the organic characters and their transtectors have been broken. But now the transtectors live on with a copy of the mind of the person that used to be bonded to them. And now they have become true super robot life forms themselves. Goodbyes are said, and everybody watches and waves as the Godmasters and Headmasters board Grand Maximus and blast off for space. Which brings us to our epilogue. Redbridge's transtector adopts the name Victory Convoy. And while in space, he and his fellow Autobots discover a golden-colored substance known as Electrum, which they use to coat themselves with. They become invulnerable to any kinetic damage, which then allows them to quickly defeat the Decepticons that they were chasing. It also means that in 2025, when Victory Convoy is shot by Dezaris, the new Decepticon leader, it won't kill him. But that is a story for another day. We enjoyed this one. We hope you did too. If so, as always, smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed and be sure to leave us a comment. And from everybody here at the longest running superhero role-playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.